This one goes out to all my ladies, all my multitasking mamas who need energy to show up at work and at home, all my empty nest explorers who need a little gut health support for the journey ahead. AG1 is the daily health drink designed to support whole body health with over 75 essential nutrients and pre- and probiotics, so you can make the most of every day and every decade. Learn more at drinkag1.com.
I think we all build a version of ourselves to survive something. Mine came from losing my mom when I was 8. My guest today built his with a scalpel. 32 years as a surgeon, hundreds of lives saved. From the outside, a life that most people would call complete. Then one accident in 2011 created major issues with his hand, his knee, and nearly his career. The surgeries that followed gave him something else too, an addiction that he never saw coming. For 2 years, Robert hid it well, and then his wife saw what he couldn't admit and gave him an ultimatum that put him in rehab within 2 hours. What came after wasn't simple. It was withdrawal, brain fog, and the loss of an identity he had spent decades building. And somewhere in that fog, an answer showed up that had nothing to do with anything he had been trained to believe in. This is his story.
I got to a point where it just was something I desired. It gives you a sense of mild euphoria, and you think you're in control. You really do. You think you're in control, you're maintaining well. But my wife was well connected to me, and she saw something totally different.
You're listening to the Life Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gilhooly. This show is built around one simple idea, that sometimes a single moment can change how we see everything. Each week, I talk with someone about the moment that shifted their life and how they learned to live differently after it. These are not stories about having it all figured out. They are stories about what it looks like to keep going once the story changes. Thank you for being here. Here's today's story. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life Shift Podcast. I am here with Robert. Hello, Robert.
Hi, how you doing today, Matt?
Doing pretty well. Thank you for wanting to be a part of the Life Shift Podcast. I was telling you before we got started at how much this journey has kind of healed me, if you will, of this. When I was 8, my mom was killed in a motorcycle accident, and that line in the sand moment really left me wondering how other people deal with moments like that, whether they're intentional, whether they're forced upon you. And so now I just have this beautiful pleasure of talking to people like yourself from all over the world about sometimes very deeply personal moments, and really finding how everyone's story has a little bit or a little piece of it that resonates with me and makes, heals parts of me that I didn't really know existed. So before we even get started, thank you for just being on this journey, this healing journey that is my own as well.
Hey, I'm thankful, I'm appreciative, and I'm honored. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that. So before we get started, maybe before we get into your story, can you tell us who you are in 2026? How do you show up in the world? How do you identify these days?
Yeah, I am absolutely my best self as we sit here talking. It's been a journey. But as we speak, since 2014, my life has just been full of passion, been very, very productive. It's been fun. It's been exciting. And not that it wasn't before, but now it's at a magnitude that I never was able to appreciate before. My relationship with my wife has never been better. And it just seems that every year that we're together, it gets better and better. We've been together now for 53 years. Yeah, I'm just so happy. It's been a good life. I look back on it now and all I see is it's been a good life. I've been very fortunate. Like most people, I've had a lot of obstacles and pitfalls, but I was able to survive those and move forward. And in fact, I think with this last episode that we're going to talk about, I actually created a situation for myself where I allowed myself to actually thrive. So like I said, I'm really happy, really proud, and I just couldn't be more thankful or more humbled by my life as it's now.
That sounds pretty ideal. That sounds like good and something that we could all aspire to, maybe. But
well, one thing I do want to say, my wife has lost 2 brothers, and she lost her parents, both of who were elderly. I've lost my parents. They were elderly. But other than that, I've never had a significant personal loss in my family. I haven't lost a brother or sister. In fact, even though I'm the youngest, They're all still alive. My children are still alive and well, and my grandchildren. So I'm not one of those people that's had one of those sentinel moments in life where they've had such a dramatic loss that it's affected them so severely. My wife was 19 and her brother was 21 when he passed away in a car accident. And I witnessed how much it was emotionally traumatic for her. And I basically witnessed a whole lot of happiness and joy leave every member of that family because I was very intimate within the family at that point in my life. And it was a difficult thing for me to witness as an outsider.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is something important to think about. Like I don't remember life without big loss, and so like my lenses are a different color. Not to say that I don't enjoy what I'm doing and where I am in life, but it took a long while to get here. As you know, you mentioned you went through pitfalls and other things like most other humans, and you found this way to be on the thriving side of it. So I didn't want to make it sound like everything was perfect, and I don't want it to also seem like everyone has to have some big loss for me to understand them. I think what you're saying is really something we should all aspire to, is to really enjoy our life at whatever point we're in. And sometimes it's so much easier to choose the struggle side, choose the hard side, choose the negative side.
When my wife's brother passed away, she was 19 and we were an item then. We weren't married yet, but we were an item. And she's an amazing person, an amazing woman, an amazing human being. She was very devastated for about 2 years. And then we started our family. We got married within that time frame, started our family. And she is one of the most positive and strong people I have ever been around. She just said, at some point, she just said, it's part of my history now. I miss my brother, but I've got to give everything I have to my children and my family.
I love that. Well, let's dig into your story. I think I'm really curious of what the before, we'll call it the before version of Robert is. So why don't you paint the picture of your life leading up to this life shift moment that we're going to talk about today, and feel free to go back as far as you need to kind of give us that context.
I grew up in a very small town in California, in the central part of California, a small agricultural community. We were very poor. And my dad had suffered a very difficult childhood, and he had a very severe case of PTSD. And he was lost. My dad was lost. He was an alcoholic, and when he was intoxicated, he was very mean. And so, of course, when you grow up in that kind of environment, there's a lot of chaos, and it creates a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. And basically, of course, you develop PTSD at some point. And associated with PTSD comes anxiety to one extent or another, fearfulness, and something I'll never forget, this sense of impending doom always seeming to lurk above you or around you. And of course, you don't have the self-esteem, the self-confidence, the self-image that you should have. In spite of that, I was always an excellent student. And I was also an excellent athlete. And because of those two situations, I had a lot of positive feedback growing up, being on a lot of championship teams and, being recognized for my achievements in school. That created a lot of reinforcement for my confidence and my how I perceived myself, if you will. And with that in mind, I matriculated to pharmacy school. I went to junior college for 2 years, and then I matriculated to pharmacy school, obtained my doctorate in pharmacy in pharmacy, and then I went to medical school and obtained a doctorate degree in medicine. I then did a very rigorous 5-year residency and 2 years of general surgery and then 3 years of otolaryngology head and neck surgery.
Wow.
At Los Angeles County USC Medical Center, where anyone who's in the medical industry, medical community knows what a busy place that has always been, because it is the main county hospital for the greater Los Angeles. So it was nonstop of people coming through. Very busy for 5 years. And after that, I started my practice in Orange County, where I practiced as a double boarded surgeon for 32 years.
Jeez.
And very, very, very proud, very, very happy with the career I had.
I'm pretty curious about that, your academic achievements and your athletic achievements, and only because I think of my own experience. And I know after my mom died, and when I was now, my dad was my only parent, I started doing better in school and better in other things because I had this fear that he would also leave if I wasn't good enough. He would never have done that, but if I wasn't perfect, he was going to leave. Do you think were you always a good student, or do you think you were like being a good student or good at athlete so you could get that recognition elsewhere, but also to not have that doom come at home if you were to cause a problem because you weren't good?
You know, the rock in my early childhood was my mom. My mom was a lot like my wife, just a rock solid human being. I never heard her curse. She never drank. She never smoked. Very rare that she raised her voice. She just had a lot of positive things to say. And I learned later that a lot of those things that she used to quote us were actually from Proverbs. So she memorized these verses and used to tell them to us in hopes that they would have a positive effect on our mindset, of course. I was always a good student. My mom and my sister used to reiterate from as far back as I can remember, you're very poor, but you have an opportunity to change your life with your education. So don't waste it. Take advantage of it. And so that was kind of the mindset I grew up with, if you will.
Okay. So there wasn't necessarily like a fear of your father if you weren't good in those areas, as maybe I gave myself unnecessarily.
Yeah, my poor dad had so many of his own issues that he was very hands off with us.
Got it.
He was very hands off. Let me give you an example. He never went to any of my sporting events. And it's not that I don't think he didn't want to, it's just that I think he felt he didn't fit in it, you know. And I think that he didn't want to cause any distractions for us. But yeah, that's kind of what I had to deal with as a kid.
Yeah. And then you absorb some of like, I guess, some of that experience just naturally growing up with someone like your father around that you carry with you, or were you able to kind of shed that along the way?
I'm not quite sure I understand exactly
Kind of like
what you mean by that.
his tendencies to lean towards, behaviors that aren't fantastic or things that cause fear or worry, or did like that home life of like what you were describing your father kind of there as, did that seep into
You know,
you?
I always had a little bit of that in me,
Okay.
unfortunately, because I suffered from PTSD also, as I told you. As you start moving up the ladder, educationally, academically, in business, professionally, of course, you start patting yourself on the back here and there. You start feeling good about yourself. Hey, I made it to pharmacy school. I made it to medical school. My practice is thriving. You pat yourself in the back a little bit and you forget all about the issues that are there lurking, the anxiety, the fear, the impending sense of doom, the diminished self-confidence, self-esteem. So things I've alluded to earlier, they were always there, but they were being masked by all these successes I had as I climbed up the ladder. But they came back.
That's part of your story. I know.
That's part of my story.
And the only reason I harp on that is like I felt like I was outrunning, like I was trying to outrun a lot of those things via successes or doing better or getting promoted or whatever it was next in my life slash career. And you were doing so much that everyone on the outside would probably see like, like that's amazing. No one would anticipate that you would have all these fears or anxiety or the things that come along with that. Do you think you were outrun or trying to outrun those with that mask?
No, you nailed it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly. And doing everything I could to try to put it on the back burner, to try to not remember that it was there, but
Yeah.
but from time to time, of course, things would happen and you'd realize, well, wait a minute. I think, why am I being so fearful? Why am I so anxious? Why am I down on myself? Why is my self-confidence lacking? So
Yeah.
every now and then it would poke its head up, rear its head up, if you will. But for the most part, because I kept having accomplishments, it was kind of in the rearview mirror, if you will.
Yeah. So you said 32 years in practice?
Yes, I
Wow,
practiced for 32 years.
it's
And
amazing.
I kept my practice open until 2014, but I had this traumatic injury late November 2011, where I sustained multiple injuries, a severe concussion. I shredded the ligaments in my right knee. And the worst part was I had a deep cut in my right hand, my dominant hand, that tore through two tendons and a sensory nerve that kind of created a lot of numbness from the mid part of my hand toward the thumb. So it was problematic, being a surgeon with that type of injury. When I first had the injury, I thought I was going to be able to return maybe in 4 to 6 months. And so I kind of geared myself. But in fact, I ended up having eight surgeries, five of them major, in an 18-month period of time. And right about the 15-month period, I realized, I'm still rehabilitating from these injuries. I don't think I'm going to return as a surgeon. So in conjunction with being disappointed that I probably wasn't going to be able to continue with my surgery career,
Yeah.
I also became addicted to OxyContin. It was the weapon of choice, if you will, they gave me to deal with the pain management after a major surgery.
Right.
And I did become addicted,
So
despite the
common.
fact that I'm a pharmacist, despite the fact that I'm a medical doctor, and I know all the pitfalls associated with something like OxyContin. I still allowed myself
You're a
to become
human.
addicted.
You're a human, human first. And addiction is something that sometimes we can't stop from happening. And especially someone going through what you were going through. I think it's just so common, unfortunately, that's the only reprieve. And then you just get, would you say you got used to it? You just wanted it? Like what was that addiction like for you?
Yeah, I got to a point where it just was something I desired. It gives you a sense of mild euphoria, and you think you're in control. You really do. You think you're in control, you're maintaining well. But my wife was well connected to me, and she saw something totally different. She saw that my decision making was erratic, that my behavior had changed dramatically. I was always someone who got things done. I was a doer, very responsible, very active. And I started spending hours and hours in our master bedroom. We have a lounge area. And I started spending hours and hours in any given day just sitting there watching television or reading something. And she knew that wasn't who I was, that I was, always doing something very positive and constructive, whether it be something pertaining to my family or something pertaining to my practice or something pertaining to my business. I was always doing something very practical and constructive. And here I was spending hours and hours basically doing nothing, just lounging and enjoying the calming effect and euphoria from the Oxycontin. But what it did is the fact that I was no longer practicing and the fact that I was addicted to the OxyContin was sending me into a downward spiral, if you will, as it pertains to my emotional well-being, my mental well-being, and my sense of who I was.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that being a surgeon was so important for my ego and toward the self-confidence, the self-esteem, the self-image that I had recreated for myself as part of that whole part of my life, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge part of your life too. I mean, you
Right.
can't not pull some of that into your identity, like, and then you can't do it anymore. Like, who am I besides,
So I guess
a
the best
family
way I
member?
can describe it, I was in a very severe state of darkness and despair. And my wife was picking up on all this, even though we weren't articulating it at that particular time. She was noticing all these changes I was going through, and she knew that I was starting to get to a place where I was probably going to be in trouble and I was going to do something to injure myself or injure somebody else. And she just didn't want to be part of it. And so she gave me an ultimatum at some point.
Yeah, was that a turning point for you? Was that like a life shift moment for you in which someone gives you
Yeah, it
the
was
hard truth?
actually January 2nd of 2014. I had been addicted to Oxycontin for a little over 2 years. Toward the last 6 months or so, maybe a little longer, I really didn't think anybody except the doctors I was getting the prescriptions from knew I was still taking the Oxycontin. I really thought that somehow, some way, I didn't think my wife knew I was still taking the Oxycontin, but she knew. She knew and she saw what it was doing to me, and she was very concerned. And she gave me this ultimatum. And within 2 hours, I was in a rehabilitation facility.
Good. Yeah. What was, I mean, you don't have to go into super detail, but was it something where it was like you had to make that choice? Like that was your only choice if you wanted to maintain something? Like what was that
Well,
ultimatum
she
really?
she she was going to leave me. She said,
Oh,
"I'm going to leave you
and that's
because
also your
I'm leaving
identity.
you because I love you, and I can
Hmm.
tell you're in a very bad place, and I don't want to witness it anymore. I'm concerned that something terrible is going to happen."
Yeah. Well, and that would, I mean, in my mind, that would be another piece of your identity falling away because of how long you had, the life you had built together. Here goes surgery, you're being a surgeon, but also here goes this entire life that I built. So it feels like your only choice is what you seemingly chose to do. Was there a choice in your mind, or was it like I this is my only
No, there
choice?
was no hesitation whatsoever,
Good.
none. And in fact, I'll tell you a little side story. I had just gotten a new bottle of OxyContin. I had a full bottle of OxyContin in my closet. I never touched that after I returned from rehab. I stayed in rehab for 8 days, and what they do is they put clonidine patches on you, and clonidine controls all the symptoms of withdrawal. So I was thinking this isn't going to be as bad as I thought it was, withdrawing from OxyContin. And after 8 days, they told me the insurance that I had, we had a really good PPO, but they only covered 8 days for, and it's not that we couldn't afford it. In fact, my wife wanted me to stay in a minimum of 3 weeks, maybe a month. It's really what I should have done, but I thought that I'm not having too many symptoms of withdrawal. I think I'm okay to go home. And I ended up going home. And when you go home, they take the patches off of you. And within 36 hours, I knew I was going to be in a very terrible state. Yeah, all the symptoms of withdrawal came upon me, and it was horrible. For 7 weeks, I had to basically undergo this withdrawal at home, and I had to formulate a plan of action for myself because I was miserable. And I tell you what was the most miserable part of it, not the body aches, not the nausea, not the headaches, but the anxiety.
Hmm.
The anxiety and the insomnia almost drove me back to OxyContin, but I just wasn't going to go that route. I just
Yeah.
wasn't going to do it. I had closed that door. It was behind me, and I just did everything I could to not even think about the OxyContin I had in my closet.
I mean,
I
how do
just
you
wanted to
survive
keep
that?
moving forward.
That's
Excuse
like
me?
I mean, you think of 7 weeks of symptoms. I'm sure hopefully by the end of those 7 weeks, it kind of starts to decrease a little bit, but that just seems really hard to do on your own.
Yeah, I had to formulate my own program. Yeah, I had to take more Advil than I wanted to. They had given me some Valium because after the concussion, I was experiencing dizziness and occasional vertigo. So they gave me that to settle down the dizziness and vertigo. And whenever I was really, really, really anxious, I took a 5 milligram Valium. I tried not to take it any more than I had to. And then to help me sleep because I had at least 4 episodes where I couldn't sleep for 3 straight days. And Matt, that drives you crazy. That really affects your mind, not being able to sleep. And so I smoked indica cannabis to help me relax, to help sedate me and help me sleep. And even though initially I would sleep like maybe 4 hours, that 4 hours felt like I had slept for 2 weeks.
That's good. That's good. And then and your wife was around while all this was happening, or was she letting you do
Yeah,
your
yeah.
own
She had
thing?
given me an ultimatum. She said, I'm going to stick around because I'm going to try to help you as much as I can. But if you get out of line, or if you go back to taking the OxyContin, I'm going to leave you, and we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah. Did you see this experience? This is a weird question, but did you see this like as a challenge, if you will, as maybe medical school would be, as like something you know is going to be hard, but you know you could do it, or was it just
Absolutely. No,
okay?
you nailed it. Absolutely. It was a challenge. I didn't know how long that withdrawal was going to last. I kind of guesstimated that it would last somewhere between 6 to 12 weeks. Fortunately, it lasted 8 weeks, but it was definitely a challenge. I said, you're not going to go back. You put it behind you. It's leaving your system. Despite the fact you're going through all this emotional and physiological turmoil, don't open that door again. Keep moving forward. Do whatever you can. Try new things to try to maintain and control the withdrawal symptoms. So yeah, that was my exact mindset. A challenge and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly you did it, but it feels like as much as you probably still were you, right? Like when you've gone through this withdrawal and you've made it to this other side, did you feel like this was an opportunity, or did you feel like this was go back to where you were before? Did like was this a new beginning for you, or was it just let's go back and
So
continue on?
so where I've taken you now is like to the end of February, beginning of March of 2014. And by then I knew the physiological addiction was behind me.
Okay.
I just knew the symptoms associated with physiological addiction were no longer present. But what was present, and we weren't using this term very much back then, was an unbelievably severe case of brain fog. I was mentally and physically stagnant and lethargic. I could not garner enough mental or physical energy to do anything positive and constructive with my life. It was a real struggle just to get out of the chair and walk down the hallway. I had never been to this place before, and it was very, very concerning. And of course, I brought it to the attention of my medical team, and they wanted to put me on antidepressants. They wanted to put me on mood stabilizers. For my anxiety, they wanted to put me on Valium or some other sedative, and they wanted to put me on a prescribed sleep aid. Well, I had just come off a narcotic addiction. I know that all of these have significant, every single category of pharmaceutical I just mentioned causes some degree of brain sedation, some degree of cognitive impairment, some degree of diminished motivation, and some degree of altered personality. And not only that, they all have the potential to cause dependency, addiction, and death. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, but over 60,000 people die per year from overdose, directly or indirectly, from the categories I just mentioned.
Wow.
Not a
Yeah,
lot,
no.
and then you add to that narcotics, which are responsible for 180,000 people. That's a lot of deaths.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, the pharmaceutical industry is being given a big pass as it pertains to benefits versus side effects and
Yeah.
complications.
Yeah. I mean, we're in even at that time, very much a society that most people want an instant fix or a quick fix, and it's a lot harder to think through something that might take a little bit longer, or behavior patterns or things like that. At least speaking from my own experience, it was very much easier decision to choose, like, oh, you want to give me that medication? Cool. Like that seems like it'll be a quick fix. It wasn't. It didn't do what it needed to do for me, but it seems like that would be the easy choice. But it sounds like that was not a choice that you wanted to take.
No, because I have the insight, I have the knowledge, I
Right.
have the experience to know you got to weigh the benefits against the side effects
And none of
and
them
potential
were appealing.
complications. And it was not appealing to me. It just
Okay.
wasn't appealing. I wasn't going to go that route. And all my colleagues who I was interacting with, they already knew that I was very anti-pharmaceutical for the most part, especially as it pertains to certain categories of pharmaceuticals. finally a Chinese colleague of mine who was familiar with Chinese medicine. And in my mind, that's ancient medicine, that's archaic medicine. Here, I've learned, I've been trained and learned in modern medicine, Western medicine. And so I was very hesitant. He said, I think there's some herbs that can help you through this. And so I was hesitant, but eventually I went to this marketplace in Irvine. I talked to a very high Asian population there, talked to this gal who'd been a pharmacist in China, and we talked about what was going on with me, and she made some recommendations. I ended up getting a packet with 5 herbs, and I said, well, I was hesitant, but I said, what do I have to lose? I don't have anything to lose and potentially everything to gain. That was kind of the mindset when I finally decided to start taking it. Within 3 weeks, Matt, all of my mental and physical energy, my mental clarity, focus, and alertness all returned and then some. So I was extremely excited,
That's
extremely
wild.
happy.
Yeah.
And then 3 to 4 weeks later, I started noticing some amazing benefits in the realm of fulfillment during intimacy. And I knew I was onto something really special. I mean, all of a sudden the light went on and I just became very passionate about studying, researching, learning as much as I could about individual herbal ingredients. And then after that, I started thinking about formulations and try to find ingredients that I thought were complementary with each other and ingredients that were synergistic with each other. And you got to realize this didn't happen over the course of a week or months. This started in 2014 and it continues until today. It's now 12 years of a passion that I can't let go of. I'm learning so much about herbal medicine and everything it has to offer to the public that it just has created a fire and an excitement within me that I haven't been able to contain.
I mean, that's great because at the time, right, your passion, your work, what you were doing was likely no longer possible because of your hand, right?
You know,
Surgery and whatnot.
about 2016, 2017, I was in a position where I had been practicing with my instruments to see what I could do, even though still had some limitations I didn't have before. I had gotten to a point where I felt like if I want to return, I can return now. I feel like I've made enough progress. But one day I looked in my rearview mirror as it pertained to my practice and my career, and all I saw was a lot of very hard work, a lot of responsibility, and a tremendous amount of stress.
Yeah.
And I just decided that's not the direction I want to go anymore.
You're
I'm
like, I
really
did that.
excited about where I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
excited about where I'm going with this passion I have for herbal medicine. And that's the direction I've continued on ever since.
And this is very ignorant of me, but all of your education and background, did that help you in this new passion, or was it like a whole new world for you?
I'm glad you asked that question. There's a lot of people out there that are recommending this and recommending that. And too many of them come from the world of being celebrities, being influencers, or being highly paid salespeople, talking heads. During the course of evolving, as I propagated through my knowledge and understanding of herbal medications, herbal formulations, I came to the realization that for health and wellness, it should be a priority for everyone to understand what requirements are necessary for someone to be able to make healthy and positive recommendations. And, I think people who are in the business of making recommendations within health and wellness have to have a significant amount of science in their background, especially the biological sciences, have to have a very high level understanding and knowledge of human biology and human physiology, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, pharmacology, and clinical medicine considerations, applications, and a real good understanding of the effects, which we've alluded to earlier, the
Mm-hmm.
positive and beneficial effects
Right.
versus the side effects and negative effects.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, that's
So
where
the
I'm at
answer is
with that.
yes. So so your training and all the things you had done for 30 plus years benefited you in this journey.
Everything has contributed to my understanding and knowledge of formulating optimal herbal formulations.
So you're feeling different via, your first foray into whatever that particular pharmacist recommended to you. You're like a couple weeks in, you're like, what is life now? This is amazing. Do you then formulate stuff? Are you formulating more stuff to make yourself feel different, feel better, and all these things, or is this more for the broader public that you're like that passion brought you?
Initially, it was for me, of course.
Okay.
I formulated a one shoe fits all kind of formulation, a formulation that had 20 something ingredients. And it was tremendous in terms of giving me mental and physical energy, enhancing my mental clarity, focus, and alertness, and simultaneously giving me a sense of calm and mood balance because it had ashwagandha and L-theanine in it. And at the same time, it was progressively improving or optimizing my life of intimacy, the benefits of fulfillment and pleasures associated with intimacy. And so I knew I was onto something very special. And I decided, hey, you know what? This is helping me so much. I'm gonna create something that I can take to market. And when we first put our team together, one of the first concerns my CFO had was, you have this one product. It's a one shoe fits all, and I think you're going to confuse the public. If you could find a way to go back to the drawing board and isolate products that are more important toward emotional and mental well-being, energy, as opposed to those that are more involved for sexual well-being for both men and women, I think that would be very helpful. And by that time, Matt, I had such a good understanding of a large number of herbal ingredients that it wasn't that difficult for me to either on paper or creating this matrix of my mind of which ingredients were going to be best for propagating brain health and brain power, as opposed to those that were going to be optimal for sexual wellness for men and sexual wellness for females, for women. So I was able to do that. And we did studies. And sure enough, I think we've created some very, very viable products that are going to help a lot of people in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Do you, when you sit in your existence now and like your day to day, do you look back on the fact that like all of this comes from an addiction that you had to a pharmaceutical? Like, feels like if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have had the ultimatum that you wouldn't. Do you connect any of those, or do you think you would have found
No,
this
no, no,
part?
all the time.
Okay.
The very worst situation and period of my life led to the most fulfilling, productive,
Right.
happy, and joyful period of my life. I can't help but think that there's a power somewhere that connected the two, that I just didn't luck out and fall into this wonderful situation.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about because you in your journey, your medical background and moving forward, you may have stumbled into this, but it feels like the passion and the pieces that you have now for it probably wouldn't have been as intense because you didn't know the value that it helped you in your most dire of moments in which you wanted to feel like a human again without the brain fog, without the other things you're going through. So I bet those really hard times make.
Matt, there's no doubt that if I hadn't experienced what I experienced,
Yeah.
that I would have not been able to create these formulations because I wouldn't have known how bad my situation was,
Yeah.
if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What was your like, say 20 years ago, if someone would have said, "Hey, take these herbs and it'll help you do this, 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 and this," what would have been your response to that?
I wouldn't have done it. I know I wouldn't have done it. I wasn't desperate enough. And
Got
I
it.
had so much belief in Western medicine. I bought in, like everybody else has, that Western medicine is optimal and that whatever faults it has are minimal. But that just isn't the case, especially as it pertains to pharmaceuticals. I think the pharmaceutical industry, how do I want to say this? They have not optimized the ability to create products as it pertains to compromising side effects and complications. And that is something they should think about and try to go back to the drawing board as it pertains to how they formulate these pharmaceuticals and all the products they use in the process of synthesizing pharmaceuticals that create a lot of problems physiologically for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
and I think your
beautiful
approach,
ingredients. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think your approach is different because there's an intention there versus some of these pharmaceutical companies. That I think the goal make people feel better, but I think there's some bad intentions that get smushed into some of those bigger companies versus the way that you're approaching what you're trying to put together is truly more about helping other people than it is about, I mean, it'd be nice to make money from it, but it feels like you want to help people feel this way. You want to help people feel a certain way.
As a surgeon, especially most of these, whereas when I was a resident surgeon, I saved over 200 lives that were on the verge of death. I mean, they were really close. We're talking about seconds to minutes. And, that's a very, very emotionally overwhelming feeling, but at some point you come to the realization it's something very special for you, for the patient, and for God, and you don't feel the need to have to share it with anyone else. But it's a tremendous experience to have that, if you will, as part of who I am. And it's very rewarding emotionally. But I came to the realization when I started having firsthand knowledge of the benefits that herbal formulations had and all the different emotional and physiological benefits that they could create, that I came to the realization I can help a lot more people than I could as a surgeon. As a surgeon, as I said, I saved 200 lives. I know for a fact that with these products we're creating, we're going to help a lot more people survive. We're going to help people who are overwhelmed in their responsibilities, in their job, overwhelmed, overworked, overstressed. We're going to help people in that category revive. And then people who have it all going, they have a great life, they have a great job, great income, great relationships, but we're going to help them thrive and take it to the next level. And these are not just theories, these are facts. These are facts. When you can optimize your intimacy and optimize your emotional state of mind and create energy that gives you the ability to go into the gym every day, these are things that are going to help you long term. I don't care who you are. It's going to help each and every individual long term in terms of their aging, the healthy aging, preventative health, and both potentially their longevity.
Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful mission, and I love that it comes from such a passion that you got, or that was lit inside of you as like this fire after you experienced it yourself firsthand. Those where the best things come from. I mean, I feel like it's so much more of a purpose than it is like a goal, if you will, in my mind. What would you say is like, if you could name the biggest difference between you now and you like 2011, around, like when you were starting to take the oxy?
Well, like I told you, I always had a certain amount of anxiety, of
Mm-hmm.
fear, impending sense of doom. And when things didn't go as well as I would have expected them to, I found my confidence, my self-esteem, my self-image lacking in a very big way. Now I have no fear. I have no anxiety. My confidence, my self-esteem, my self-image has never been better. I like the guy I see in the mirror. I feel like he gave everything he had to making not only his life, but the life of many, many others that improve in a very big way. And I'm thankful for all the opportunities I've had, all the experiences that I've had. And I'm just in a very good place. And, it could all change tomorrow, Matt. Something dramatic could happen. Something could happen to someone in my family who I love dearly, and everything would change in a very dramatic manner. But as we sit here talking, I have never had a better mindset emotionally, and I am so active physically. I'm just so thankful, appreciative, and really humbled by where
Yeah.
I'm at in life.
I mean, that's great. Do you have bad days, or is that
I'm
allowed?
sorry. I'm sorry.
Do you have bad days?
Oh, I have bad days, but
Okay.
they're nothing like what they used to be.
Right.
Yeah, nothing like what they
Okay.
used to be. I maintain a certain level of calm and how do I want to say it? I understand things better. I work through things, but I process
Yeah.
things so much better now
Self-awareness.
than I
Yeah.
did when I was much younger.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the only reason I ask that is sometimes people are like, yeah, everything's so wonderful. And I was like, well, I think sometimes we're all still human and bad days happen. And for me, it was like growing up when I had a bad day, it was a shameful thing. I shouldn't be sad. I shouldn't be this. I shouldn't do that. Now, when I have a bad day, it's like, today's not a great day and that is okay. And here's how I'm going to move through it. And it won't be bad all the time. And it will return to a good space in the future. And so for me, it was very much self awareness.
One thing I have always done my entire life is I've always exercised, even when I didn't feel like it, even when I didn't want to. I have always exercised, especially when I felt some degree of stress or duress, or I was, for example, when I used to have really, really busy days in the operating room, where I'd start at 7, 8 in the morning and not finish up until 6, 7, 8 in the evening. One of the first things I always did was I'd go to the gym and have a nice hard workout. And that's always helped me tremendously. And, I'm sure you're aware, one of the things that happens with exercise, and the more vigorous, the more this occurs, is we flood our bodies with endorphins, which are the body's natural opioids, and feel good neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, GABA, and to a lesser degree, norepinephrine. So, yeah, I wasn't aware of that way back, but somewhere in the middle of pharmacy school or medical school, I learned this and I continued with it. And so, whenever I think I'm on the verge of having a bad day, I'll either hit the floor and do 40 or 50 push-ups 2 or 3 times. Well, I'll go get on my elliptical trainer and just go hard for 20 minutes. That's just sort of a mindset that I've had
Yeah,
since I was a young guy.
that's great. I mean, I think that's very healthy of you. Makes sense for what you're going through now. If you could if you could sit with the Robert that was going through the insomnia and all the pieces during that withdrawal period, is there anything that this version of you would want to say to him?
I'm very proud of you.
Hmm.
You persevered.
Yeah.
You showed the type of resilience and determination you have and the love you have for your family and for yourself. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. If people are super interested in what you're doing and your story and reaching out to you and connecting with you, what's the best way to find you, get in your orbit? What's the best way?
Well, first of all, I love talking to people. I love talking to people and find out what their issues are and making whatever recommendations I think are pertinent as it pertains to their particular situation because we're all different. And the other thing is we've created a wonderful website that has a lot of really useful and positive information as it pertains not only to our products, but more importantly, I've written blogs on a lot of different topics, such as the what I consider to be concerns people should have for the pharmaceutical industry, concerns people should have for the nutraceutical industry as it exists today, concerns I have about bold claims being made on social media that either there isn't scientific data to support it or the medical community has studied it extensively and does not agree or support what's being propagated. So yeah, there's a lot of really good information. I'm really happy, really proud. I put a lot of work into those blogs, so it can be very helpful for people. I think just about everybody will find something that interests them in the 20 or so blogs that we've written.
Great. So we'll put that website in the show notes so people can access it. If are you on social media or any of those pieces for
We're
people?
on
Okay.
social media. But the social media thing is more making people aware of our product line and what they can, the benefits and whatnot. But I am going to start some social media conversations or articulating what I think are topics of importance that everybody should be aware of and concerned about.
We'll send them to your website and hopefully that bounces them out to different places where you are. I just really encourage people listening, if something in Robert's story like resonated with you, or you've gone through something similar, or maybe you have an opposing thought and you just want to share that and have in conversation as humans should, I encourage people to reach out and just engage in conversation. I think the more that we can do that and hear from other humans and connect in ways, not just agree on everything or not disagree on everything, but just like be humans together, I think the better we all are at the end. So that's what I'm going to encourage people to do, whether you want them to or not. I'm going to at least send them to your website.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm very thankful for that.
And thank you for,
can I give a parting comment to your audience?
Of course. Yes, you can.
I honestly believe that everyone between 18 and 80 should make health and wellness their number one priority. And with that in mind, it's important that you exercise on a daily basis, meditate on a daily basis, and start understanding what it means to have a healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet, and how important it is to minimize and or moderate the stress in your life.
Mm-hmm. So, I love that. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for this conversation and going in all the directions that it went in. I really appreciate you being a part of this journey.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you to everyone listening. I will be back in a couple days with a brand new episode. Thanks again, Robert. Thank you for listening to the Life Shift Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. There you can check out all the different episodes. You can check out the blog, some of the reviews for the podcast, and the Life Shift Journal. Links are there so you can purchase your own copy, whether in digital or print format. Thanks again.